They never heard the first drone. Not the operators, not the guards, not the soldiers posted along the defensive line. The valley was quiet, the air still, and their routines unchanged. To them, it was just another moment on another front line. But above them, somewhere in the pale morning haze, a silent shape glided forward, small, fast, and locked onto its target. The camera on its nose recorded everything: the trenches, the dugouts, the movement of Russian troops who had no idea that their final minutes of stability were already ticking away. When the drone dipped into its attack run, the soldiers below still hadn't looked up, and in the space between breath and impact, their entire defense collapsed. The first explosion hit with sharp precision. A flash of white fire swallowed the forward bunker, sending a plume of dust into the air. Russian troops stumbled backward, disoriented, unsure where the hit had come from. Some yelled orders, others ducked behind sandbags. But all of them shared the same fear. They didn't know what was coming next. The drone recorded their confusion as it spiraled upward, transmitting perfect footage of the shock spreading across the trenches. Before they regained their footing, a second FPV drone screamed toward the next target. It dove low, weaving between debris, adjusting its aim with almost deliberate intelligence. The soldiers barely had time to sprint before the drone struck the corner of a fortified position. The blast shredded the fighting post and sent men scattering into open ground. Dust clouds rolled across the earth. The air turned thick with smoke, and that's when panic started to replace discipline. From above, Ukrainian surveillance drones circled like silent witnesses. Their cameras captured everything: the fleeing troops, the collapsed positions, the frantic attempts to reform defensive lines. Operators miles away watched the feed in real time, studying movements, timing reinforcements, and marking new targets for the next wave of FPV strikes. The battlefield unfolded like a living map, one they controlled from the sky. When the third FPV drone launched, it accelerated faster than the soldiers below could react. The footage showed Russian troops sprinting between trenches, one shouting into a radio, another pointing toward the sky, all of them terrified by the sudden precision of the assault. But no amount of shouting could stop a weapon that flew faster than panic. The drone closed the distance in seconds and detonated directly against the main firing point. The shockwave rippled through the trench network, sending soldiers diving into the dirt. The attack was coordinated, relentless, and impossible to counter. Ukrainian operators controlled every angle, every altitude, every line of approach. More drones entered the air, flying low across the fields, navigating around trees, hugging the contours of the battlefield with perfect stability. Some provided reconnaissance. Others carried explosive charges. Together, they created a synchronized strike zone that the Russian troops could not escape. Another FPV drone angled sharply toward a Russian machine gun nest. The gunner spotted it at the last moment and fired wildly into the air, tracers slicing across the sky. But the drone moved too fast, too unpredictably, dodging to the left and then accelerating straight into the nest. The impact obliterated the position and sent the remaining soldiers scrambling. The footage showed them climbing out of the trench and sprinting across open ground. An act of sheer desperation. And then came the turning point of the entire operation. A group of Russian soldiers, trying to regroup near a small shelter, were caught by a surveillance drone hovering overhead. The drone operator marked their position and, within seconds, dispatched another FPV from a concealed location. The attacking drone flew low, skimming over broken ground, its camera locked onto the shelter's door. The moment it reached the entrance, it detonated with perfect accuracy. Smoke poured out, soldiers fled in every direction, and the defensive line shattered completely. From the drone footage, it looked like a wave breaking against the rocks. Except this wave was made of men, running at full speed, abandoning weapons as they sprinted for safety. They fled across the fields, through bushes, into ravines, over fences. Some tripped in the dirt. Others threw themselves behind the nearest ridge. But the swarm was not finished. Ukrainian operators redirected drones to track the fleeing troops, not to strike them, but to document the scale of the retreat. The footage was astonishing. A dozen soldiers sprinting across open ground, their shadows stretching across the earth. Abandoned gear littering their path. Trenches left empty. Machine gun positions overturned. Smoke rising from the places they had once defended. This was more than an attack. It was a collapse. An entire segment of the front line falling apart under the force of coordinated drone warfare. As the FPVs struck final targets behind the lines, the Ukrainian surveillance drones zoomed out to reveal the full battlefield. What minutes earlier had been a fortified Russian position was now an expanse of craters, smoke columns, abandoned trenches, and scattered equipment. The operators watched as the last remaining defenders sprinted through tree lines, disappearing into the distance. The front had broken. The Russian troops weren't just retreating. They were fleeing with everything they had, driven by panic and the knowledge that drones could strike from any direction at any moment. Back at the Ukrainian control station, operators monitored the feed calmly, guiding the final drones with precise hands. Their voices remained steady, giving quiet commands, marking positions, confirming hits. There was no chaos on their side, only coordination, discipline, and a level of battlefield control that had reshaped the war entirely. When the final FPV drone completed its mission, the surveillance units remained overhead, documenting the aftermath. Craters glowed faintly. Smoke drifted over shattered earthworks. The once fortified Russian line now looked like the remnants of a storm, the kind of storm that strips everything in its path. The Squall operation had lived up to its name. Russian soldiers who escaped the drone swarm eventually regrouped far behind the line. Winded, shaken, covered in dirt, they tried to recover. But the footage told the truth. They had retreated faster than they could think. Driven by fear of drones they couldn't outrun, couldn't shoot down, and couldn't predict, the battlefield, once loud with shouts and gunfire, now lay quiet. Only the drones remained, hovering silently, watching, recording, proving to the world how modern warfare has changed forever. The attack they never saw coming had left them with only one option: to run with the speed of the wind.